Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, I've got Ken Schreiner with me. Hey, Ken, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Ken has a really cool story to tell, and he's got a spirits brand that is just now launching.
Mhm.
So he's coming on Bourbon Turntable to tell us about that. We've got a couple of his spirits that we'll be trying in just a few minutes. But before we get into that, I want to tell you about Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiast like you. We have Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything when it comes to distillation. Alan also has a show called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. If you're a distiller, you got a question, ask Alan. And Alan will post video responses to your questions so we can all learn from your curiosity. Alan also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. The show ventures away from the whiskey world and gets into the supernatural, the spiritual, everything from UFOs to Bigfoot to conspiracy theories to you name it. He covers it, and it's always an interesting show. Have a good time listening to that. My Whiskey Den every Monday night with Pat and Mike and Mitch. My Whiskey Den is where craft whiskey is king. Every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. Be sure to join in with the good folks in the chat. That's always a lot of fun. And Whiskey in My Wedding Ring with David Levine. David was a guest on my show last week. We had a great time. We kind of traded samples and swapped some tasting notes and talked about the future of bourbon and the impact of distillers leaving their distilleries. It was a great conversation, a whole lot of fun. So be sure to check that one out after you finish listening to this. So, Ken, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh yeah, this is great. Now, you and I met through our common friend Alan Bishop,
Yeah,
and
wonderful guy.
I knew of you, and know a little bit about your background and your story. But uh, are you a native of Louisville, native of Kentucky?
So, born in Jeffersonville, Indiana. I think I'm born as close as any human can possibly be to Kentucky without being born in Kentucky. So, the Clark Memorial Hospital is right on the river,
Yeah.
and so my family's we have a lineage going back between Southern Indiana and Kentucky, as far as Taylorsville, Spencer County, Shelby County, Jefferson County. Um, Probably about 250, 300 years, from what I understand.
Oh wow.
So some of my lineage. But yeah, born in Southern Indiana. I live in Louisville now. This is home. Kentucky's home. Still love Indiana. There's a lot of great people over there, but Louisville was a better fit for me.
Yeah. And family all here now?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So most of my family's either in Shelbyville or in Jeffersonville, New Albany area.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. So you kind of have the river covered. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's why Alan accepted me, because I was born in Indiana. He could see the Hoosier. He could smell it on me when I got out
yeah.
of the pickup truck. And so, yeah, born in Indiana. I don't, I'm no don't claim to be a Hoosier anymore. I've been over here in Louisville for 20 years, but
Yeah.
he's a wonderful guy, and he believes in his Indiana product. So I love that.
Yeah. You can take the boy out of the Hoosier state. You can't take the Hoosier out of the boy, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
When we were talking a little bit pre-show, you said you lived in Kansas City for a while.
Yeah, I've lived all around the Midwest. My background is sales and sales development, sales
Mhm.
training. So I lived in Kansas City, Nashville, Cincinnati, Louisville. Spent some time in other states and other cities, but nothing of
Mhm.
huge significance. But lived in those four.
One step ahead of the law. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not running from anything actually, but I was running to get home. If that's anything,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love Louisville, Kentucky. This is my home. This is where I want to be. I told Maria she's going to bury me in our backyard. I'm never moving again.
Good. Well, not good. You'll get buried.
Oh, it's going to happen to us all eventually. But yeah,
Giving
in a long time.
giving one's wife license to bury you in the backyard. Um,
Good
Judging
point.
from all of the episodes of Snapped that my wife watches, I know that's
Oh,
not a
good.
good idea.
Well, my wife's a Hallmark movie girl,
Oh, okay.
so
Well, you're
I think I'm
safe.
safe.
You're
Yeah, I'm
safe.
safe.
Yeah. We'll just
Yeah.
gotta. You just gotta keep Cindy and your wife apart, and then there
I don't
shouldn't be
need
any
any of
bad
that
ideas.
negative influence. That's right. That's right. We got to keep them separated.
Now, for now you're about to be a whiskey mogul.
I hope so. That's very kind
But
of you to say.
but you're active in as a realtor, correct?
Yeah, so I'm the team owner of Frontrunner Real Estate. We have a mortgage brokerage launching on July 1st called White Oak Mortgage, and we're launching AJ Schreiner Spirits hopefully July 1 as well.
So you don't have anything to do right now.
No, I'm very, very bored most of the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I kind of doubt that. I kind
yeah,
of doubt that. Now, uh, before, not everybody, some people would notoriously have little to no background or interest in whiskey, and then just
yeah.
decide that they're going to jump in and
Mm,
spend a lot of money and market the thing up and then sell it off.
yeah.
But you've got a background in spirits as let's just call it an enthusiast,
Hmm.
not before you were in
Hmm.
decided that you were going to start AJ Schreiner Spirits.
Yeah, yeah,
You were into whiskey legit, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, for years. So I'll just kind of talk about myself as far as my own spirits development and taste for the product. I was a firefighter EMT in Southern Indiana and Louisville for a long time, and I developed some pretty nasty post-traumatic stress disorder. And
Mhm.
with that, a lot of times comes coping mechanisms, which was for me alcohol. And I developed a taste for it. I mean, not just because it was a bad habit, but it was a good whiskeys. And I was finding these wonderful whiskeys and really just finding and learning it and loving the product and learning the process and finding everything I got out. I could have learned about mashing and distillation and different
Mhm.
types of stills. And, still as an enthusiast at that point and got a hold on my drinking. And it's much more moderated and completely under control because I believe in keeping control of yourself and being, doing the appropriate thing when you drink. You don't want to harm yourself with something as special as good liquor. But that was where my kind of start came. So probably for 15, 20 years, I was drinking before I, decided to foray into the spirits
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah, but and thankfully you have that under
Hmm.
control.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I think that's a of a life lesson to everybody
Hmm.
that you know we're all everybody that's listening to this
Hmm.
show is more than likely someone that really enjoys
Hmm.
spirits.
Hmm.
Uh, you just got to keep it under control, and you have to have people in your life that can say, "Hey,
Yeah.
uh, uh, pump the
Hmm.
brakes."
hmm I'm a big believer in making sure that you're healthy with the habits that you have.
Mhm.
So try to be as healthy as you can. If you feel like it's getting away from you, talk to somebody, reach out, get some help. There's no shame in it.
Yeah,
Good whiskey is supposed to be enjoyed in the appropriate manner, not abused.
yeah, and sometimes that appropriate manner is in the parking lot after a bourbon society meeting.
Yeah, was that Bourbon Brotherhood? We were all out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's where you and I really met.
standing in the rain. Yeah, standing in the
Standing in the
rain,
rain,
taking
drinking
testing
drinking whiskey.
samples.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, but the point being,
Yeah.
one, I appreciated the opportunity
Well, it
to
was
share
wonderful
those
to hang out
samples.
with you. Yeah.
But memories are made
Hmm.
around opportunities to drink whiskey,
Hmm.
and whether that was great whiskey or bad whiskey. In this case, it was great whiskey.
Hmm.
Uh, it's the camaraderie, the
Absolutely.
conversation, the memories that are the things that you carry with you.
Absolutely. I love spirits because it helps people become more of themselves and less self-conscious. And in sales, we do it all the time. We're drinking constantly because truthfully, it helps other people be more comfortable in their own skin and around others.
Mhm.
So it's one of the tools that we have in our tool belt to make sure that everybody enjoys their evening and we bond as friends and family.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, we've got a couple of things that we're gonna sample tonight, and
Hmm.
let me one, is, the bottle on the left is, a Heritage Rye,
Hmm.
and the bottle on the right, which we'll get to in just a little bit, is a, gin,
Hmm.
I think called a Kentuckiana gin, right?
Yep. Kentuckiana gin. There was no classification in the TTB handbook that would fit it due to its unique distillation. So we decided to make our own category.
Well, blazing trails here.
That's
So,
right.
all right. So I have some of this rye poured in my glass,
Yep.
and I've poured it. I've nosed it a little bit. I haven't tasted it yet. So
Okay.
while I'm tasting this, obviously, please pour a little bit of your own. Now, is that one of the actual bottles there that you have in your hand?
Yeah. So I
Can you show
apologize. I
that?
wanted to make sure that you had a full bottle, but we didn't have the labels on
Okay,
in
not a
time. So the
problem.
labels have been a little bit delayed. So this is our bottle. It's a New Yorker bottle. We're doing print and label. So that's something that
Okay.
we wanted to make sure that we were trying to put the most luxurious looking bottle out there for some of the best rye whiskey that we could provide.
Yep.
And we've done a few unique things because most folks don't know who AJ Schreiner was. Although he was a prominent distiller in his day, he was never one of the barons who had his name on any of the products. He was really the worker bee. He was the guy behind the magic of all the labels. So we took quotes from his life that are publicly available, and we put them on the side of the bottle so you could learn a little bit about who he was and how much respect he had as a distiller. And then because we're fifth generation now, we have all of their original signatures on the other side of the first batch.
Oh, very cool.
So these bottles will probably just be limited edition to have these signatures on the side. But that's the bottle. I love this thing.
Cool.
I love this bottle. I'm very proud of our creative director, Sabrina Fraley, for doing such a good job.
No, that looks great. That looks great. So the real test though is what's in it. And so I'm going to start tasting this, but as I do that, the AJ Schreiner was your great grandfather, is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Great.
You have enough greats in there. Okay.
Yeah. You got the perfect amount.
Okay. So you mentioned some of his background, and I've read some things on him as well. But his impact into distillation in the whiskey world was pretty significant, both with himself and as he passed that along to his children. So share a bit about that.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is I'm it's luck by lineage that I am, that I was born into this family and I inherited the notebooks that we'll talk about a little bit later. But AJ Schreiner, born, I believe, 1865 in Cincinnati, Ohio, and worked up there for a little bit, came down to Louisville, Kentucky. His dad was the first generation, migrant into this country, came over on a ship out of France from West Baden, Germany. And so he was, German immigrant, came to Cincinnati for a short period, then moved to Louisville. His mother was killed in a tragic wagon accident, and he was left at an orphanage, a Catholic Charities orphanage.
Oh, wow.
He and his brother JJ grew up in orphanages. The first distilling method records that we have from him is around 1882, and we have a photo of him in front of Old Times number 297 at 28th and Broadway, which was one of the preeminent pre-prohibition distilleries. It won best whiskey in the world at the 1897 World Fair. I think that's in Chicago, and then won some more awards in the 1903 St. Louis World Fair.
That was before the Ascot Awards, right?
That was before the Ascot Awards. No disrespect to the Ascot Awards.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But so it was before that. Now, funny enough, there was some bribery that I don't know if you read Laura Field's articles on
what?
Yeah, you can't imagine, right? Like those types of things that happen, especially in 1900. But American, one of my favorite whiskey blogs. Shout out to Laura Fields from the Fields Foundation. She's helping bring back all the rose and rye in the United States. She has a great blog, and it's a really good one, and it really focuses on whiskey history and in Pennsylvania. But so AJ, started around age 16. The documentation we have is he was a protege of J.B. Wathen, and the Wathen family.
You know Turner, I guess.
I have not met Turner, actually. I'd love to meet him.
Okay.
Yep. I've heard great things about him.
We can set that up too. So
would love to meet him. So studied under the Wathens. He and two other prominent distillers of their day, all kind of went their separate ways. So by the end of, let's say, 1917, he had become the master distiller for White Mills, which is, I believe, now Old Forester. That's the building that has the historical marker in front of it. Best of my understanding, it's the only distillery in the United States that has a historical marker. And that's the White Mills building. Lindale, he was master chief distiller there. They didn't say master distiller in those days. It was just distiller, chief distiller. Right. So chief distiller for Lindale, Sam Grabfelder, and ultimately Sunnybrook. Sunnybrook ended up being one of the biggest pre-prohibition brands in the United States. So by volume, I think Sunnybrook was putting out more volume than anybody else prior to 1917. 1917, he saw the writing on the wall with the Volstead Act and Prohibition coming. So he went to Canada and became a distiller for Seagram's in Montreal when it was headquartered in Montreal. Spent Prohibition in Canada, had his kids distilling in Canada with him, and then came back to the United States and started Shinley once Prohibition was over. And then they became one of the big four. And his brother, JJ, who the gin's named after, was distilling with him there at Shinley. That's the gin distiller.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is, that's foundational stuff to the pre-prohibition distilling industry in the United States and in Canada. Yeah. And basically relaunching distillation in America. Mm-hmm. Post-prohibition.
And it's such a special. And I have to say this, and the hair stands up on my arms when I talk about it. When Prohibition happened, I was listening to Brian Harrow the other day, who's also wonderful. Mm-hmm. He was on another podcast, and he was talking about how a lot of the records from pre-Prohibition were gone. They were no longer useful. They were thrown away. They were set to the side. They were, abducted by whoever was coming to break down a still. Right. And so there's very few distilling records from the time of Prohibition and before. And we happen to have some pretty detailed and accurate notebooks from those times. And I can say that, I know that Seagram's published a manual that Alan's really fond of during that time. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of readily available stuff. And we have some books that were pretty important to that time.
Yeah. And I don't know, I don't remember the dates that were published, but there's like the Practical Distiller. I don't remember if that's pre-prohibition or not. I think it is.
I don't. Is that the one Oswald Schreiner wrote? There's one that there was an Oswald Schreiner who is not my kin, but I wish I could claim it.
That's one by Samuel M. Harry.
Okay, yeah, so that's a different one. Yeah, I think the first distillation book written in the United States was by Oswald Schreiner in the late 1700s.
Yeah, this was 1809. So yeah, definitely pre-prohibition.
Definitely.
Got it by a full century. Right. Which, we think, we know so much now, and we've got so much history with whiskey, and we're not even 100 years past Prohibition being repealed. And you go back and you look at how far this goes. And again, not to wear out his name tonight, but I know Alan's done much research on this subject, not just in the United States, but around the world. And, and there are different things, different techniques and everything, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of the same scientific process to ferment grain.
And there's like each variable is so important in a good whiskey, and people like Alan, people like Eric Wolf at Stolen Wolf Distillery. I don't know if you've ever talked to him.
Yeah, Eric's been on the show before. Yeah,
I mean, and so as I'm a businessman, I'm really I'm a whiskey enthusiast. I think I can speak the language of distillation a little bit, but I'm certainly nowhere near a distiller. When you talk to these people who are distillers, who love the grain, who love the process, who really understand what different enzymes will do, and talk about how to mash in at a different technique, or how long it's got to sit and what temperatures. I mean, man, these people are brilliant. Yeah, and it's a real artistry. And so one of the first things that when Alan and I got together is I said, well, I won't tell Picasso how to paint. Here's what I need. I needed to do X, Y, and Z. This is the idea for the brand, and that's how we set it off.
Yeah.
Ken doesn't get to boss people around. I just, get to give feedback.
Yeah.
Alan, you couldn't boss Alan around if you wanted to, I don't think.
No, that would not be a great idea.
No.
But that's smart on your part. You have a vision. You know what you want it then product to be like.
Yeah.
You don't get in the way of the process.
Yeah, exactly. Let the artist work.
Yeah. So this rye, what can you tell us about this? Because it's not obviously not distilled by your spirits company yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
correct.
So what all can you tell us about this, and what do we need to know?
So AJ Schreiner Spirits is very proud to kind of focus its lens into the past and into the products of pre-prohibition, early post-prohibition. We want to have our roots guided and in the ground of this is what was happening pre-prohibition. Now, like I said, we can talk about the books and how they inspire a lot of that, because they do tell different techniques and things to look out for and different mash bills and all that stuff. But on the first product that we wanted to release, we wanted it to be something really special. But how do I be honest about a blend? Okay, just to be really honest about it. Let's be really honest that it's a blend and that we've sourced this material from craft distillers. We didn't buy anything from the behemoth. We did acquire some barrels that they had manufactured at one point through a craft distiller, but we did not source anything from MGP. Not that they don't make great whiskey. I actually, MGP is now Shinley. So my great grandfather helped get that place off the ground. So it wouldn't be against history for me to source from it.
Right.
I have a good, if I wanted to, I've got a great, line for that. But at the same time, we really wanted to support the craft industry. And those you'll find when people don't distill for yield, and they're distilling for love of the product, you're going to have a lot different profiles and a lot better whiskey, in my opinion, through some of these smaller batch distillers and people who use double pot still. So, this bottle right here, Alan made 90% of what's in this bottle. I won't tell you where or when or how, because we've got contracts that we're not supposed to say anything, and I don't want to upset anybody. The other 10% we sourced from another craft distillery. The goal for this was how do I be authentic about a blend and not tell a story that's inauthentic? Because there's so much bullshit right now.
Right.
I'm not interested. We came at it from a unique perspective. We said, how do I give people something that they can't normally get, which is a funky, dusty type flavor? And I love the funk of those old dusties. I love it because it's very, with the way that distillation happens today and has to happen today, it's very hard to get that funk in a whiskey.
Right.
So we sat down, we went through revision after revision after revision, and we said, now we've got it. And eventually it came to, and it's not heavy funk, it's a light funk, but you should be able to taste that funk that you would get off of a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old bottle in the nose of this and on the palate. And I love it. My wife yells at me for drinking up our own stock. So it's a really great product, and it's something that you can't get. I can't go back to 1920 and source this whiskey that AJ made.
Right.
What I can do is pay tribute to the things that a lot of people don't have access to, which are the dusties.
Right.
And that pre-prohibition style. And some of these whiskeys, we can talk about the distillation methods for them, but really high quality stuff.
And you're not putting out there in the slightest that this is representative of what your great-great-grandfather made, but it's inspired by what he did and what you've learned about what he did through the notebooks, which we'll get into in a minute.
We were toying with doing some component blends, and we did source very specific whiskeys specifically for this flavor. But when we were trying to do component blends to match up to something that may have been in the books that we've got, details for,
right,
none of them came out either good enough or authentic enough, to be honest. So when we do distill, we will distill probably going into next year. Some of the recipes, mash bills, things from those books, but this one is a blend. It's something that we wanted to put out there to get the brand out there and start giving people quality, really high quality rye whiskey that is not like anything you're going to get. You will not taste this and go, "Yeah, I've had this before."
Right. Right. I mean, I can kind of get hints of things.
Yeah.
But no, this is 100 proof rye. It's called a heritage rye, and the photograph on the bottle is that of AJ, correct?
Yep. So the brother is on the other bottle, and we have in my direct lineage there was FL. He was my great grandfather FL, and then my grandfather KA or Kenneth Andrew, and my dad Andrew. Now I'm Kenneth Andrew II. So we have some other historic names and photographs that we're going to be introducing on other bottles in the future.
Great. So this rye, first of all, congratulations. I think you've accomplished getting that. There is a dusty funkiness, especially on the nose and on the finish.
I'm excited to hear that. Thank you for. Yeah, I'm always nervous, because some people know what that funkiness is. Some people, have different tolerances for it, but like I love that flavor and that nose.
There's a like a grassy hay, and I don't. A lot of times you're not thinking, boy, I hope my whiskey smells like hay. That's that's what we're talking about here. Okay?
But so what you're getting that grass, I get a lot of fig,
okay,
and raisin on the nose.
I was thinking plum, and so I think that's kind of in the it's kind of in that ballpark.
In that ballpark. Alan's big on plum. He loves that nose.
And there's a little bit of orange in there too, on the nose and on the palate. There's see, there's as it's kind of going from the palate to the finish. There's a little chocolate note that creeps in there, a little dark chocolate note creeps in there. It's got a nice herbal taste on the palate, kind of a little minty bitterness there too.
So so it's funny because Alan puts his tasting notes in, and I think he's much more adept at understanding unique flavors and pulling out flavors. So for me, it's like front end or on the nose, you got a lot of fig, and it kind of fig, then it goes to like a toffee. I pick up a toffee note, and then it goes into the mint finish. Almost like a sweet tobacco and a toffee combined.
Yes. And when as I was tasting, I was writing stuff down, and I said, "There's oak and tobacco on the finish, a little bit of cherry and a little bit of mint."
Exactly, and I'm really proud of that. Like that was to get that funky flavor in there. Like Alan had to be such a genius. And I mean this in the nicest, most kindest way. The guy is brilliant. When you tell the guy, "Hey, I need to find a flavor that you only get from aged whiskeys that are not manufactured anymore."
Right.
There's very few distillers, I believe, that either have the knowledge or the ability.
Right.
And he had both.
See, and able to take the vision that you've got and translate it into what's in this glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
But we can talk all day about how brilliant Alan Bishop is, and but
we'll move on. He's not smart at all.
But the thing is you had a choice when you started this. Okay, you had several choices when you started this, because you could have decided, well, I want something that's going to have mass commercial appeal because I want to sell lots of bottles. Okay, and then you could have gone to our friends up in Lawrenceburg and grabbed you some 95.5 and put this beautiful bottle to work, and you'd sold it. But you also had the choices of, how do I want to go about doing this? And you could have just sourced a bunch of whiskey, put it in a bottle, and put a story on it, and you would have been very successful.
Yeah.
because it's a good story to tell. And honestly, that's good whiskey that's in the bottle. People
Mhm.
like it.
Mhm.
But you didn't do that either. And you sought out somebody in terms of counsel.
Mhm.
So how did you land on Alan
As the distiller.
as a distiller, consultant,
Mhm.
whatever role he may play?
Yeah. So Alan is actually our distiller.
Hmm.
You know, he's we contract with him. And currently, he's doing the blends. Obviously, he's putting those things together, and he distills our gin. But the story behind it was, um, so Bruce Corwin, good friend of mine,
Hmm.
owner of Bourbon Brotherhood, wonderful fella. So I guess I have to back up and kind of explain the books, and then I'll explain how it
Sure.
happened. So I asked my father about 5 years ago. My wife said, "Do whatever you want. You got a project you want to do? Do whatever you want." And I was like, "Really? Anything?" She goes, "Just do whatever." Because we had just relocated from Louisville, my home. I had my
Hmm.
real estate business up and jamming, and having to leave the city where you do real estate is very, very difficult to keep a real estate business going.
Right.
So I was selling homes in Kentucky from Kansas, traveling back and forth, and still networking, and it was tough on the family. And anyway, she goes, "Do whatever you want. Find something that you love, do it." So I called my dad, and I had known about these distilling notebooks for years.
Hmm.
It went from when I was a kid. He would show them to me and tell me how special they were, but he never. But as a child, you don't really understand. And then you kind of grow up in the shadow of some big distillers, where my father likes to brag about the history and talk about it. So he's really into it. He spent 40 years researching everything to do with this brand.
Wow.
So, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but 40 years worth of history is what we're using today to build this, along with the
Mhm.
books. So I said, "Dad, can I have those books? I'd like to see if I can't recreate some of the recipes." I got them and had no clue what I had,
Yeah.
because I don't read distiller, and I especially don't read 100 years ago distiller. There's a different language that they spoke. And there's a different language that distillers speak today when they're checking pH balances or talking about night yeast versus day yeast versus this type of thing and this type of mashing method. So I knew quickly I was outmatched.
Mhm.
So I went to Bruce Corwin. I went to lunch with him. I showed him the books, which he's one of the few people outside the family who's ever seen them. And I said, "I don't know what to do with this. If you were to send me to somebody who knew what to do,
Mhm.
who would you connect me with?" And he said, "Oh, first person is Alan Bishop, like right there." So I said, "Okay." So I don't think Alan ever thought I would actually show up. So we set a date to go up to Spirits of French Lake, where he was at the time. And I was at Old Homestead, and then I sat down with him and I showed him these books, and he went through these books. And I think I sat there in silence for 45 minutes
Mhm.
as he flipped through all these pages. And he goes, "You really don't understand what you've got." And I said, "I really don't. I'm really happy that you seem to." He goes, "These are incredible." He said, "What do you want to do this? You want to sell this?" I said, "No." And because my father would disown me. He said, "Do you want to publish it?" And I said, "Oh, no, these have been secret in my family since my dad got them in the 50s. And before that, when my grandfather had them, great grandfather." He said, "Well, these are incredible. What would you like to do?" I said, "Can we bring back some of the mash bills?" And we shook hands that day, worked together for 2 years to bring this
Mhm.
back without a single contract. And we just put it together. And that's where the idea for AJ Schreiner Spirits came from, was looking at those books and working through the process with the people who can connect in this industry. And thank God for Louisville, Kentucky, and the fact that so many of us live here and we know each other and we can ask for help, and hey, who do you know that can do what, and those types of
Mhm.
things. So it was really a wonderful coincidence to be recommended to Alan by Bruce Corwin.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, did you write? That's for sure.
Well, he's bought into the brand. He's actually one of the owners now.
Good.
So he was really, really passionate about what we were doing because he saw the truth and the honesty of it. And so we're happy to have him on board.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great because Bruce is a good guy too. So,
Mhm.
um, so this is kind of a National Treasure meets Goonies meets Holy Grail kind
Yeah,
of thing, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
I think so. I don't know about the Goonies, but yeah,
well,
we're.
there's a treasure map in the Goonies, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, all right. That's what the
Yeah.
reference was. All right.
Yeah. And
I'm not
you
the
know,
guy who's got the funny face.
no,
No,
no.
okay.
Yeah, but you're on a quest.
There you go. I am on a quest.
What is your quest?
Yeah.
Um, so um, we'll get back into the books in just a second, but first I want to make sure that everybody knows where do you find you and where to keep up with stuff, and we'll share this again at the end of the show. But where can folks find AJ Schreiner?
So the website has just gone up. Once again, really incredible job by our creative designer Sabrina Fraley managing and putting together the whole thing. That's at ajschreinerspirits.com, and no spaces or dots. AJSCHREINER spirits.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, AJ_Schreiner_spirits, or you can find us on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my name is my handle, Ken Schreiner.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll mention on the website, you can go there, you can sign up, put in your email, you'll get email updates and alerts and when bottles will be available and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that shout out.
Yeah. Do you have a price point for the first batch?
Yeah. So batch one's going to come in, so it'll be $119.99. We're releasing 4,000 bottles a year next year. We may scale that up depending, but we're not trying to be one of the behemoths. We want to stay small. We want to stay nimble. We want to have really, really fantastically good whiskey. It's the backbone of the industry. Yeah. If I was to reopen a brand with my great-grandfather's name on it, and put crappy whiskey in it, I think I'd be doomed to hell. But $119 for the bottle, 4,000 bottles a year, and it is only going to be sold within a 50-mile radius of Louisville. We intend to do no distribution unless it's online. You can go to our website once the bottles get finished up, because we're just waiting on labels now. But you'll be able to go online and buy them if you want distribution to 48 of the 50 states. If it's you're going to see it on the store shelf, you will only see it in Louisville, Kentucky. This is our home. These are our people. This is bourbon country, and we want to give something back to the community that's been so good to us.
That's great. I appreciate that. Everybody else, just come to Louisville or buy it online.
If you want it, you're going to have to come in, or you're going to have to send people.
But it's accessible. That's the thing, is you may live, in New York or Maine or wherever. You can still get access to it. You just got to order it online.
Exactly.
So what is the plan to then have physical space for AJ Schreiner Spirits?
Great question. So we will only contract distill. I have no interest in owning a distillery. It seems so very cool when you're walking through them, but in my mind, I'm just like, that's this is going to cost $500,000. There's $1 million there. Here's our overhead here. How much does the distiller cost? It's worth a damn.
Right.
I have no interest in doing that, especially because the partners that we've taken in the industry so far are so wonderful and have such great setups that we can probably contract distill and get exactly what we want. We want to, the essence of the brand will be double pot. We may occasionally do some column still or 3-chamber stuff depending on the product that we release, but right now we try to stick to as much double pot as possible. You're going to get a superior flavor and better viscosity. If you look at the legs on this, it's pretty impressive.
Right.
So it's that's kind of the way we're going as far as space. Now, a storefront or some type of place, we're going to start negotiating with a distillery that is of unknown. We're just not going to name them at this point.
Right.
And we would like to have some space in their gift shop. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll update you, and you can, disseminate it once it's available. But we're working on it. If it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. The people, when they see this bottle, they know we've only dropped $1,000 a quarter. They're going to buy it.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, and I'm thinking, if you have a storefront, then you've got a place to tell this story. You have a place where people can come and try these spirits, and who knows where that goes from there. But the important thing right now is you're getting product out, and you've got a plan for that contract distillation process as well.
Yeah. I don't want the debt. And one of the things that we will do is A couple times a year. Hopefully we can work into the contract that I get to go do some of the tours myself, and hang out with the people who like our product.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty available, guys. I'm in real estate, so it's not hard to get a hold of me. I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah. So when you start the contract distillation, will the mash bills be things that came from your notebooks?
Yeah, we are only going to contract distill things from the books.
Mhm.
I don't see. Out of those books, there's probably 20 to 25 different rye recipes.
Oh, wow.
So we don't do bourbon. We only do rye.
Mhm.
There are probably 5 to 10 bourbon recipes in the books. And we did some samples, some small batches, but none of them really impressed us.
Mhm.
They were average, and we're not going to release an average product. So what we're going to do is we're going to do rye, exclusively rye and gin.
Mhm.
The gin's a rye-based gin. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Mhm.
And the inspiration for all of them is going to come from the books. Now, there is some of the recipes, and one of the ones that I'm really, really excited about has mash bills, pH balances, mash cooking temps,
Yeah.
how big the still was, everything. So we have some really extremely detailed ones, and those are going to
Right.
be the first ones that we bring back out, like the ones that they really don't require much new thinking. I want to just as close to what it was at that time. That's what I want.
Sure.
And now I know I can't get there because the yeast is going to be different, the water's different, but
Right.
I can at least do my best to bring you an essence of something that would happen 100 years ago. Something that your great great grandfather drank if he was in Louisville, Kentucky. That's important to me. That's what I want.
Yeah.
There are some others, and we have some great mash bills, and some of the notes are maybe lacking, so we get to be a little creative in spaces.
Yeah.
But between the old insurance maps, I don't know if you've ever taken a look at those, where you can go say, hey, this was Lindale, or this was White Mills, or this was Astor, or this was
Mhm.
Belmont, and this was this, and this was that. And you can go through those, and you can say, okay, they were running column, or they were running double pot during this age.
Mhm.
And okay, so now we can verify with that. And then they were using steam heat and probably 48-gallon barrels at a certain point. And we want to try to stay as true to it as possible, while giving everybody something that is, basically it's a victim of time.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah. Uh, so will the plan be then to at some point replace this heritage rye with your great grandfather's picture on it with something that was from one of the books, or are you planning
No.
to keep this
Mm-mm.
rolling and then
Yeah.
just supplement releases with the stuff of
Yes.
the books?
So the two that'll always be on the shelf is what I call the two brothers, AJ and JJ.
Hmm.
So the two brothers should always be available, and we'll start distilling our own stuff, to replace sourcing
Hmm.
for the heritage rye, hopefully next year.
Okay.
So that'll end up being our own distillate, because Alan, like I said, he made 90% of what it's in it already, and so it shouldn't be tough to recreate
Right.
exactly what we're getting with our own distillate, because
Yeah.
it's Alan. But I will not replace that. I actually love this product so much I wouldn't want it to go away, and
Yeah.
I think anybody who has it's going to feel the same way. So the product that's on the market today, that will stay that product.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very good. Yeah, because I think this is fantastic. I think y'all knocked it out of the park, and
Thank you.
excited to see the public reaction to it, which I'm sure will be very well received.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
so let's do some gin. How about
Of
that?
course,
Now,
love it.
um, you kind of set me up here on this gin. I
How
believe
so?
the gin is supposed to be 93 proof. And I don't know if you can see this sample bottle that he left with me. It's 130 proof. So I will tread lightly. Hopefully we don't have to end the show early.
No, if for anything, we're gonna go long.
uh, so,
So please get ice if you have it. I'm packing my own ice. So we had not proofed and have not proofed this down yet. So what you're drinking is the 130 proof
mhm.
JJ's Kentuckiana gin, and it is hot, hot, hot at that proof. Now, if you let it open up, you give it a little ice, you chill it, you can drink this straight It's one of the best neat and on ice chilled, in my opinion, gins on the market.
Yep. It doesn't hide the proof. I'll say that. But it's not like, oh, this is killing me either. No, this is nice because there's a lot of flavor in there. So, this is something that Alan distilled with you, correct?
Yeah, I got to help make this.
Cool.
Which was one of the proud moments of my life, actually. So, JJ Schreiner is this weird kind of character in our family. My dad, the historian, he talks about him as the Flim Flam Man, which was a 1920s version to somebody who was basically a con man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he pops up in Butte, Montana, selling racehorse tips as the 5 for 7 guy or something. He sold in Arkansas and Wyoming plats for oil drilling. And so whenever he was the racing editor for the Denver Gazette for a while. So like you see him in the past and he had no distillation, anything. And then all of a sudden at Prohibition, he disappears. There's nothing about him for years. Right. Okay. And he's gone. If you go on newspapers.com and you don't find anything except for occasionally he went to a gala to help support and donate money to different charities that help orphanages. So he was huge in that. And I believe that's how he ended up with his Kentucky Colonel. I can't prove that he has a Kentucky Colonel because the Kentucky Colonel records are not that extensive, actually, especially for the early 1900s. But he was referred to in the newspapers as Colonel J.J. Schreiner. Mm-hmm. So also you go, was he full of shit? I don't know. He was the Flim Flam Man. But, he says he was a colonel. So we're going to, roll with that. I thought that was a cool thing. And during Prohibition, Seagram's was importing whiskey into the United States to the Great Lakes. They would, have somebody take the whiskey on a big boat. They would get down to whatever speed boats they had at the time. I don't know how fast a speedboat was in the 20s. And they would deliver them all throughout the coast. And my great grandpa, one of them, would pick up the whiskey and run it into the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And JJ, I believe, was probably pretty heavily involved with that end of the business. After Prohibition, all of a sudden he pops up legal distiller at Shenley making gin. Yeah. And made gin until he died in 1937. He actually died at the Lawrenceburg distillery.
Oh, wow.
In his chair. He walked in, he said, "My hands are cold," fell over at his desk. Wow. Slumped over, died at MGP, which is MGP now.
Right. Wow. Mm-hmm. The gin, I get a lot of orange, a lot of vanilla. It's like you remember those Lifesaver cream saver things where it would be like the creamy and the orange.
Yeah.
That's it.
To me, this is like a gosh, what's the word? It's like an orange pound cake or marmalade.
Okay.
Like a citrus marmalade. And so what we did, and so this is a really unique gin. There is nothing on the market like this. So we actually took a rye base instead of using a neutral spirit, like a vodka or a gin that's been distilled down to distill out all the flavor. Right. We used a rye base. So this one has that warm, fatty flavor on the base, on the bottom end, which is like a music, kind of a reference. I always think about a rye bass as kind of like the bass guitar or a bass drum it supports everything.
Right.
And then we distilled it, the botanical run with, the heavy ones that you'll pick up is going to be lime, citrus, vanilla bean. And we distilled this really uniquely. There's some temperature things that we did for this gin that are not commonly used in gin. So we cooked it at different temperatures. We used a rye base, and then we put honeysuckle in the gin basket, and we ran honeysuckle through there. And if you get on the nose and on the finish, you get honeysuckle. Yes. And it's a wonderful addition to this product because once it's chilled, you can drink this straight, and it'll catch up with you at this 130 proof. But at 93 proof, it should be just smooth as silk.
Do the flavors hold up proof down that much?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they actually get better. They open up a lot.
I put a little water in it, and it did open up I don't know if it just tamed the alcohol a little bit
Right.
or opened up some of the
Hmm.
flavors. But
Yep.
once I put that water in there, I
Hmm.
did get I could get that lime because
Hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, you just this with on the rocks with a little
Hmm.
lime,
Yep.
yeah, that'll sing. And
And what I love about this, just real quick, I'm sorry, Kevin.
no, go ahead.
This is so Alan has had the Shinley gins from the 20s, or excuse me, from the early 30s, from
Mhm.
post Prohibition. He had them, and he came to me and he goes, "Ken, it's not very good." So he just realized like it's not really good. And I said, "Okay, then we're not doing it." Real simple. He goes, "But I know what your great uncle was going for."
Right.
He goes, "I know what flavors he was putting in there." And he said, "But he goes, I want to make it palatable for today and better."
Hmm.
And I said, okay. And if you go back, there's a great article for a high school field trip to Lawrenceburg, Indiana, Shinley, where they go through the gin room, the gin distillation room,
Hmm.
and they're seeing the botanicals that are put in the gin basket for the Shinley gin, which is citrus, lime, and lemon.
Mm.
And we distilled this with those primary flavors, along with the vanilla bean and the rye based
Right.
honeysuckle, right into this. So
Right.
this is a new take on the old Shinley gins.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like gin."
Yeah,
And okay, that's because you've had the heavy juniper
yeah,
lick up Christmas tree gin.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so many of the craft distiller gins get away from that and they
Hmm.
focus more on
Hmm.
the citrus
Yeah,
botanicals. And this probably is as focused on the citrus as any that I've had.
yep.
And yeah, it's very good. You're
Hmm.
even at 130 proof, uh,
Yeah.
it's got a great flavor to it,
Hmm.
and there's not that overwhelming juniper note to it.
Yeah, and there's those juniper notes. A lot of people love them.
Mhm.
There's juniper in this. Wouldn't be a gin without it.
Right.
But each product has its own unique and special place.
Mhm.
Um, I think that what you'll find is when you have our gin, you'll be able to drink it neat. And this is really gin for whiskey drinkers.
Right.
This is not gin for gin drinkers. Gin drinkers tend to shy away from this product. Rye whiskey drinkers or whiskey drinkers in general, bourbon drinkers, they
Right.
love it.
Well, you've got the rye
They
base
can't
to
get
begin
enough of it.
with. You got the
Yeah.
rye base to begin with, and
Hmm.
then you put on top of that the botanicals that you've used.
Yep.
This is very, very accessible
Hmm.
uh, to a whiskey drinker.
Yep.
A very friendly
Hmm.
version of gin.
Yeah. And my hope is that I can, I don't know, help the distributors help the stores put them next to each other. And this one will be $59.99 on the store shelves, most likely, as long as everybody plays ball. That's what we're trying to MSRP it at.
Mhm.
And that one, the people who taste it, I was just talking with another podcaster recently, and we were at the historic trades workshop that we all did up in Pennsylvania to teach veterans with post traumatic stress disorder, about the distilling industry.
Yes.
And I think I had as many rave reviews about the gin as the whiskey, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Typically in a whiskey drinking crowd, you're going to get everybody focused on the rye, and it really wasn't it.
That's very cool.
Hmm.
Um, no, congratulations again. That
No, thank you.
home run. Absolutely.
Well,
Um,
I'm
so
blessed, but thank you.
the release date is July 1. Is that what you're targeting?
Yeah, that's what we're targeting. Everything in the whiskey industry takes about 4 times longer than you thought it would take, between government regulations
Sure.
and all the third parties we have to contract with. But our labels should be in anytime our bottles are in. The
Mhm.
whiskey's ready to be put in the bottle. We're partnering through Mash Network for online distribution. Hopefully, we work with Sealbach as well. And then we're currently under contract negotiations with two other um, uh, local distributors and trying to make sure that we get the best fit and the most availability for the consumers who want to go out and find
Mhm.
it.
Have you looked at doing a barrel aged version of this gin in the former barrels that the Heritage Rye was in?
Yes, it's a conversation.
Mhm.
One of the things that we're working right now is stave finishing it. So
Okay.
we have some really particular staves that we really are fond of, and so we're going to test it in the stave finish. If it comes back the way that we like it, we may release a stave finished version. But if it doesn't come back right, there's a few options for barrels that I'd like to
Mhm.
explore. And I think that once it's been in a barrel for 2 years, because rye um, tends to adjust a lot quicker to or mature a lot faster in a barrel. I
Right.
think that we're going to have a really special product.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I think that so many of the flavors that you've got in the rye
Hmm.
would play really well with the gin.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was very curious to see how that would turn out, but
yeah.
who knows?
I'm. Well, I tell you what, man, you'll be one of the first people to have it if it's like if it's a good product. I'll make sure that you're one of the first.
Well, I appreciate
I
that.
appreciate you asking me that because no, Alan actually has right now. He's going through all the tests
Mhm.
for the different staves and how much like how much we want to age it, how many staves we're going to need, what's the product going to be like. And I haven't actually tasted it myself. I'm trusting Picasso to make
Right.
his mark. I
Yeah.
tell him what I want, and then he goes and makes the decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I do want to talk about music for a little bit here too,
Let's do it.
and because I know from relationship with Alan how big a part music plays, and not just his life, but
Hmm.
in his work as a distiller. So I want to get a feel for where you come from musically, uh,
Yeah,
and these there are two questions I ask pretty much everybody that's on the show, and this is not going to
yeah.
necessarily indicate where you are today, but do you remember your first concert?
Oasis
Oh,
I had two firsts.
okay,
I have two firsts.
that's fine.
It's like I was a virgin twice.
Sure.
I saw Alabama when I was a really small kid
Hmm.
at the fairgrounds during like I think a Kentucky State Fair. Um, Loved it. We had the nosebleed seats. I think my mom got free tickets from somebody. So that was the first concert I went to. I was probably 8, but still remember how much I liked Alabama at the time. I still think it's a great, old country band.
Yeah.
But Oasis at the Egyptian Room, I think is what it was called, in Indianapolis. I went with one of
Okay. Yeah.
my good buddies when I was a kid, like maybe 13 years old, and saw Liam and Noel Gallagher
Yeah.
fighting it out on stage,
Yeah.
and it was a great concert. We
Yeah.
were probably 6 rows back, dead center, and it was a great show. To say that you saw Oasis in the '90s was like it's a thing,
Right.
because that was really their peak, and their music on those first couple albums was just incredible.
No.
So really weird distorted guitar sounds. They played like the ES 335s and 337s, and those big semi hollow body guitars push through a room. All the ambient distortion that you get out of those. It was really really a cool experience.
Yeah.
I
I
wish I had been. I wish I had the knowledge I had today to enjoy it in the time.
right.
Like
Well,
I could go back and see it again.
how many experiences can we say that about in our life?
Oh
You
my
know,
god. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. If I
Every
could
one of
go
them.
back, my
Yeah.
first concert was Stevie Ray Vaughan. If I could
Was
go
it?
back, it would,
We was
the
Stevie Ray Vaughan, really?
yeah, uh,
Wow.
which, but yeah, I
With
didn't
Double
know.
Trouble?
Yeah, I didn't know anything. He was great. He could play
Sure.
guitar. He's awesome. But I didn't
Yeah.
know anything. If I could do that right now, oh my gosh, are you kidding?
Well, was that the coked out bottle of Jack Daniels a night Stevie, which was a different Stevie
Yes,
than the sober Stevie?
I think this was trying to get sober Stevie.
Well, you had him at a good time then.
So he was not sweating so profusely that he could hardly hold the guitar. So yeah, uh,
Yeah, some of those pictures of him, you're like, boy, those stage lights had to be on.
yeah.
One of those things.
Oasis. I don't remember which of the brothers it was, but one of them was asked about the music that they play and what they like to
Yeah.
play, and they say, "Look, Wonderwall allows us to do everything else." You
Yeah.
know, and we play that one song every concert, and there we go.
Yep.
Yep.
Can you hear my dogs?
I can. They're all
So I
right.
need to stop because I'll pause them. I'll go help them get outside if that'll help the podcast. I don't want to be rude.
All right. So dogs have been successfully calmed down.
Yes, and I apologize.
No, don't believe me. That is not the first time, nor will it be the last. Yeah, that there's been. I mean, we've had shows where cats have walked across. Cats are.
That's funny.
Cats are butts. They.
Mm.
And I've got a little glass with ice and put some gin in there. So we'll try.
Yeah, tell me. Tell me what you think once you get a little ice. Once it really cools down, it gets that crisp flavor to it.
Yep.
You're gonna pull out so much of warm botanical, like citrus and lemon and honeysuckle and vanilla. Man, it's good.
Okay. Well, while I'm doing that, talk about the first album you ever bought. Granted, you were probably not buying vinyl. You were probably buying CDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have to say I have two again. So there was like one, and then there was a more mature person who the music spoke to. So the first one I ever bought, which I still think is a great song, the album was pretty terrible. The Dishwalla Counting Blue Cars, 1992 or so. It was like a one-hit wonder on grunge pop radio or DJX here in the town. But yeah, that was probably
a new one on me. That's
you never heard that. You've heard the song. You know the song.
I'm sure I've heard the song, but I'll have to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, Dishwalla Counting Blue Cars is a great song. And I'm like, when I was 10, 11, 12, gosh, I mean at 92 I was 12. It was it spoke to me as a young guy. I really liked the melody and everything on it. And then the one that I think kind of steered me towards the musical track that I've been on for the last 20 years was Pearl Jam had a incredible album. It was one of their first when they released everything. So, they started doing in the early 2000s, I think it was 2000, they released all of their shows throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And I got the one in Milan, Italy.
Yes. Okay.
And it was incredible. And so Mike McCready, the Pearl Jam player, lead guitar player, he did. So Black on the album does not have a solo. And if it has a little bit of some notes, they mix it in really heavy. So you can only pick out a little bit. Black Live, Pearl Jam, especially that one from Milan, Italy in 2000. But he's always switching it up. He's an artist, man. The guy creates a different solo every time. That album that song stuck in my head. The guitar solo alone for 3 months. And I got a guitar. Somebody taught me the pentatonic scale. And I went home, and for 6 months, I picked out every note on that guitar. And I learned the solo before I learned chords. And that was like the solo just stuck to me. And so since then, I've been a huge guitar fanatic. I've got a Marshall half stack downstairs. The Black Beauty 1959 Les Paul Black Beauty. I've got a Strat that's about 25 years old that I love. And so I'm a huge guitar guy. I love guitar. I have a Washburn that's modeled after one of the Dreadnoughts that Eric Clapton plays, and it sounds phenomenal. They don't make that particular Washburn anymore. So yeah, if like the album that changed my life, like one of the first early albums that sent me on the track I am now, that Milan, Italy Pearl Jam live album just blew me away.
Interesting.
Changed my life.
Interesting. Now, how many times have you seen Pearl Jam live?
8.
Okay.
Not a lot. I mean, there's people who like tour the country.
Oh, well, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm like, because compared to like the Pearl Jam dedicated fan base, I go to the concerts near me.
Yeah. I mean, there's always somebody who's that nut. or several somebodies. And
I got friends who'll sleep in their cars and drive from one state to another to follow them around. And I don't have time for it. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm old. My back hurts. If I slept in my car, I'm gonna limp for a week. So
right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, my wife and I've seen Tedeschi Trucks band several.
Oh yeah.
And we'll go to shows and we'll be talking with people around us. And how many times have you seen them? This will probably be the 6th time. And I'm thinking, ever, and they're talking about the 10th time
Yeah.
this tour or
Yeah.
this month, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, okay, you win,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Right, yeah. So like it goes back to that old Seth Godin, 1,000 True Fans. Have you ever heard that?
Mm-mm.
It's an old business guy. He's not a old business guy. He's like a business teacher and stuff. And he talks about like you got to have 1,000 true fans for whatever you do.
Okay.
They will buy everything you do. They'll support you. They'll tell you when it sucks. They'll tell you when it's good. Like the people who really believe in you and your brand. And I think that those folks are the essence of the core for a lot of these traveling bands. The Pearl Jam, Sadusky Trucks. I mean, Derek Trucks can play guitar like nobody
Oh
else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Eh, for my money, greatest living guitar player right now.
You think so?
Yes. Now that doesn't mean
Mm.
okay. Like Clapton in his prime or whatever. Okay,
Hmm.
maybe, but right now,
You
Derek
think
Trucks.
he's in his prime?
I think Derek Trucks is still in his prime. Yes.
How about like Joe Bonamassa?
I okay. Now you're making my point very difficult to keep.
Yeah.
But I love Joe. I think there's a little bit of difference to style there.
Hmm. A lot of difference. Yeah.
I think that I just love the tone. I love the
Hmm.
slide guitar that Derek plays. Um, I've again,
Is
I've
it more Delta? Is that more Delta blues? What Derek
Uh,
Trucks was playing?
Derek he's kind of taking what Dwayne Allman did and just
Mm. Okay.
taking that not I'm not going to say to the next level, but
Right.
just taking that and making it his own. Uh,
Gotcha.
stylistically, I think they're very similar. I
Hmm.
think in terms of the sound that they get, there's some similarity there, but
Hmm.
um, I just think he's fantastic. I've commented on the show a few times that I've seen them live again, probably 6, 7 times, something like that.
Hmm.
And I I never seen him tune his guitar.
You ever seen Hughes?
I
Who?
never seen him tune his guitar.
Oh, really?
Like, so he's sitting on, like a lot of times you'll see a guitarist still sitting on stage and somebody's
Yeah.
vamping about something and they're tuning. Never seen him tune it. Don't see him switch guitars out. He just
Oh, wow.
he just adjusts
Yeah.
somehow. And I had Boone Froggatt from the band Oasis, and we were talking about that. And he goes,
Hmm.
"Yeah, he's good enough that he can kind of make those adjustments, and he can kind of hear when one string's getting a little out of tune, but
Yeah.
he just kind of keeps plowing right through it." And I just think he's incredible.
He's a
So
master.
yeah,
I mean, like he's gonna go down in history as one of the best living guitar players or best blues guitar players
yeah,
ever lived.
yeah. There's live in San Diego album that Clapton has that
Mm.
Derek Trucks is playing slide guitar on that tour.
The one where he plays the ES-335 on the cover, the Eric Clapton, where he's playing the big red like Epiphone dot, kind of like what John Nicholson
Uh,
used to play.
I don't
I think
think
that's the
so.
live in San Francisco. Well,
This
I'm a
is
big Clapton fan.
yeah, this is in San Diego. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just the best way to see it is go to YouTube
Yeah.
and just search Eric Clapton San Diego Motherless Children.
You should bring up
And
some tunes
yeah.
for us. Can we play them? Can we play some tunes
Uh,
while we're listening here?
no, because YouTube will take it down.
Okay, good.
So
Good answer. We don't want you to get taken down.
okay, but what we can do
Mhm.
is we can have a post-release party where we can sit around and drink some gin and drink some rye, and we can listen to all the music we want to.
Oh, so when the release party happens, you're certainly going to be invited, and
Thank you.
we're gonna. I haven't decided, and I got to talk to my wife and the creative director and the people who tell me what I do good and what I do bad. We need to talk about what kind of music because I was thinking, like okay, it's 1920s, it's pre-pro, early post-pro style. 1882 to 1936. We're actually even building our cocktails
Oh
to
wow,
specify to that time frame.
very cool.
So yeah, we're going to build cocktails that are specifically formulated to mirror something that would have happened in that time frame. And so I'm sitting back going like, God, I would love to have like a good blues band, but jazz would probably be a little bit better, like or maybe some really good trumpet, like some of the jazz at that era.
Yeah, I mean that would work. You could go, somebody playing some Delta blues on
Hmm.
guitar. That would
Oh yeah.
absolutely work. Yeah, uh, I could
So I'll
give
have
you
to get your input. I'll need you. I'll call you. I'll say, hey, okay,
some.
here's what
Okay.
my wife greenlit me to do, and who should we hire? What kind of band should we get?
Well, again, I think you find a musician that you trust, and you do with them like you did with Alan and the Spirits. You say, "This is what I want.
Right.
Can you do it? And
Exactly.
will you do it?" And then
Yeah.
you let them go. Because the one of the amazing things is there's so many talented people in this town. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I was at an open mic thing a couple nights ago, and you're thinking, okay, open mic, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But everybody went up there. They're
Hmm.
playing their own songs,
Hmm.
acoustic by
Yeah.
themselves, and they're like, these guys are great,
Oh yeah.
and nobody knows who they are.
No. Oh man, and that's the hardest thing to stand out amongst artists.
Mhm.
I mean, like, if you're an artist, I think in any category, separating yourself from the pack is an extremely difficult thing to do.
And I mean, part of it certainly is talent, and part of it
Hmm.
certainly is hard work, but
Hmm.
you cannot say that part of it is just not luck and good timing.
Oh yeah.
And you got heard by the right person at the right time, and there you go.
Hmm.
Um, so I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot of that out there. Um, so if you're playing,
Hmm.
you you better just love playing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
work hard and for the craft and for the
Hmm.
fans that you have. And then if it hits, then it hits.
Yep.
And if it doesn't, then just know that what you're doing is great and you're
Hmm.
incredibly talented. It just, for whatever reason, the dice didn't fall your way.
I'm not enough of a risk taker. That was my whole life. I wanted to be a professional musician. I was going to go to SAE in Nashville and learn
Yeah.
audio engineering. If I couldn't make it big, one of those types of stupid dreams. And,
Yeah.
um, I was like, you know what? I really like nice things and I don't want to be poor all my life. So, I think I'm going to have to like figure this whole thing out in business. And so, business is my art now.
Yeah.
I get to play blues guitar when I don't annoy the kids and do business. That's my life.
Yeah. Okay. So I rambled about who I think the best living guitarist is. Who do you think the best living guitarist is?
Oh man, I think it depends on what you're judging the criteria on, but I'll kind of give you some of my favorites
Hmm.
at the moment. I think Mike McCready. Anytime he plays a solo, the guy taps into something else that he's just on a different plane spiritually. I really enjoy Joe Bonamassa. I don't think he gets into that level as far as ethereal, but he's really great technically. I think he's one of the best technical guitar players in the world. I would say, living, I still think Eric Clapton is somebody that you got to put up a good fight to beat.
Hmm.
And then there's this guy, and I don't know his name, but there's this wonderful band I've just been almost obsessed with recently. It's called Polyphia or Polyphia. I'm not
Hmm.
exactly how to pronounce it. It's a fusion, like kind of a metal fusion.
Okay.
And these folks, I mean, this guitar player, he's doing some things that most guitar players could not do. Extremely talented, highly, it's not some of the, heady sort of fusion rock that you don't really understand because it's really close to
Yeah.
like experimental jazz. Like they've got great chorus verse bridge, kind of structure, and you can kind of pick it up. Some of the songs have lyrics, but not many. Polyphia, if anybody hasn't heard them, go spend some time.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
great workout music, great to listen to in the car.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've listened to them, but yeah,
Oh, okay, so you're
yeah,
familiar.
yeah. I've listened to some of their stuff, but I couldn't tell you a whole lot about it at this point. But I remember
And
liking it,
well,
but just didn't really just dive into it deep. But yeah.
yeah, I can't stop. I mean, I think I've had 5 albums,
Mhm.
a bunch of young guys, and but they're really really killing it. And as far as skill, very good.
Yeah. Um, well, and one of the fun things, and you and I chatted about this a little bit. One of the fun things about having this show is just getting to meet musicians
Hmm.
um, that are incredibly talented,
Yeah.
but just don't have that notoriety
Mm,
now yet.
yeah.
Whatever the case may
Hmm.
be. But there's a lot of talent out there.
Well, I mean,
And
even look at somebody like Jack Harlow. I
yeah.
don't listen to that type of music. I really not my style. Doesn't really do anything for me. But the kid's obviously talented. I mean,
Mhm.
he's putting together some really good. Like I listen to it and I go, okay, I can see why people like this.
Yeah.
You know, just incredible stuff. So Louisville's full of musicians. People don't give Louisville its credit as a city with great music.
Mhm.
You know, because it's so underplayed from the whiskey, which I'm okay with. But, you
Right,
know.
right. Well, it kind of plays in your favor right now.
Yeah, yeah, right now for the next 15 years or so before the next big downturn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can talk about too if you want to talk about the whiskey, the bourbon bust.
Yeah, we can dive into that just a little bit and touch on
Yeah,
that. But back to the gin
yeah,
on ice, it gets so creamy. It's really incredible.
yeah.
The way that it changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It so a lot of people with rye. So everything in our company is going to be rye based. We're going to
Mhm.
do everything rye based. I don't think we'll ever do a bourbon. I have no interest in doing bourbon. I don't want to fight it out on the shelf space with bourbon people. Rye has a spectrum of flavors that just span, right? Like you can get some incredible ryes that'll give you that hot peppery flavor if you like it. It's not my favorite, to be
Mhm.
completely fair. I think it's a lot of times um, it's a byproduct of distillation and doing it in the way that you would do corn. So often with rye, you know. So if you don't let me, would you mind letting me pontificate for a second?
Please,
All right.
because what I'm doing is I'm putting a little ice with the rye just to see.
Oh, the rye is really it's really creamy too. It's really good.
Mhm.
So with when it comes to like rye based products after prohibition, Pennsylvania no longer had its foothold on rye distillation.
Mhm.
Everything had really switched down to Kentucky because the big four during prohibition were all in the South. American Medical Spirits, Shenley, Seagram's in Canada, excuse me if you want to exclude that one, and some other ones. We shifted to the South where we were still had distilleries and we were still producing whiskey, and corn was our natural product in this area, whereas rye grows better in the northern states. But during Prohibition, I mean, the only company that out of Pennsylvania that got a medical distillation license was Finch, and Finch sold that license to Shinle.
Mhm.
So the Finch name was gone. The Alleghenies and Monongahela's out of Pennsylvania was gone. So we got all of this corn in Kentucky. Well, for years, nobody produced rye. Nothing. I mean, it wasn't even a thought about because rye is harder to produce. The
Right.
yield is extremely less. And it takes a different, I mean, like people will hurt their stills trying to do rye. That's why a lot of places buy MGP rye.
Right.
It's just not right for the stills that a lot of places are running. Well, when you do that, the places that run it, they use the same yeast as they use on corn. They use the same cooking methods as they use on corn. They buy this, group or grain of rye that's between Canada, Minnesota, this place, North Dakota, South Dakota. They blend it all together, and each grain batch that you're getting is actually a little bit different because it depends on where the weather came through in the northern United States and what
Right.
rye was doing, right? So we forgot how to distill rye during Prohibition. You can make it. You may even like the hot stuff. To me, like when I buy a rye that's foolproof and I drink it during the summer, I feel like I want to internally combust. Like I want to bust into flames. It's just not a fun drink. It needs it. It's great for a cocktail, like a cold Manhattan, a cold. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on names, but I don't drink cocktails much. But so what I'm saying is, it's great in those. It's not great in others. Rye is not supposed to be that hot. It's supposed to be flavorful. I've had ryes from some great distillers that taste just like lemon cake.
Mhm.
2 year ryes that taste like you're eating a lemon cake.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful flavor palettes.
Right.
And we don't do that right anymore. We miss these flavors because we've lost the distillation arts that go with the rye grain.
Mhm.
Corn we're doing very well with. And I love corn whiskey. I like bourbon. Believe me, you go say my bar, it's full of it. But the rye offers more spectrum of flavor, and we have to embrace that. If we want whiskeys to continue to be the market dominating spirit and not lose our spot to ready to drink with seltzers or the tequilas or the vodkas that are coming around. We have to embrace the different flavors that whiskey's going to provide to the consumer, because consumers have grown in their palate in the last 5 years. They need something more interesting. Rye provides that.
Mm. Yeah, because you can do a lot with rye in terms of just mash bill alone.
Mhm.
And I think that we're seeing a lot of times people say, "Oh, we just talked about with gin." A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like rye." Well, that's
Right.
because you've had 95.5 rye that
Yeah.
that tastes like a
Yeah.
dill pickle. Okay, and
That's a good answer.
and that's obviously an overgeneralization.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good 95.5 rye,
Mhm.
but a lot of the rye that has been just mass sent out to consumers is a fairly inferior product. And you
And it's
start
amazing that even those inferior products are starting to take so much market share from corn whiskey. I mean, it's growing leaps and bounds. I think it's grown 2,000, 3,000% in the last 5 years
wow.
as far as purchases. And so when you get these like 12-year ryes that Bulleit's coming out with, or gosh, who else has a 12-year rye at the moment? There's another one I'm blanking on. Is it Nom Creek? No.
Knob
But
Creek has a 10-year, I think it's a 10-year rye that they just came out with that is
mhm,
100 proof.
yeah, they're
Um,
good products, but they're
mhm,
I mean, think about it. If you're buying a product, because there's actually in existence, and I've not had it, so I can't speak to it. There's a 21-year-old rye right now. Whatever company was producing rye 21 years ago before this, took off. I mean, whoever the strategist was for the brand had to be like they were like teasing the guy for 15 years. Well, look at all these barrels we made because Barry
yeah,
said rye's coming back. And now there's like I think it's slow and slow or slow and
uh,
low
it,
rye whiskey out of
Lock,
Pennsylvania.
Stock, and Barrel has a 21-year rye. I
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
lock, stock, and barrel.
High
Okay.
West
Yep.
has a 21-year rye.
Yeah, I don't know
Uh,
who was making it 21 years ago
I don't
that
know.
they sourced it from, but they got it. I mean, it's pretty cool. And rye matures
Oh,
faster than corn whiskey.
Jefferson's has a 21-year rye. So
Mm,
wherever they got it from, but yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
And I'm not an age whore. I'm not going to assume that something is better simply because it has it's older.
I like
Um,
I like this 5-year rise and I like 7-year bourbons. To me, that's like the sweet spot for each one of them. Like
mhm,
you get a little too much barrel and not enough yield post that for most. Like everything in the glass that you're drinking right there is just about 6 years old. I didn't go back and check the age statements on each barrel yet, but most of everything you're drinking in there is 6 years old.
yeah. With a little ice, there's a nice floral note that comes out on the nose.
I like it
Yeah,
on the
really
rocks.
good, really
Hmm.
good. I typically drink neat, but
Hmm.
you know, several years ago, you drink it neat. That's why you're supposed to drink bourbon. And then, okay, idiot.
Yeah,
Uh,
drink it however you like it.
drink it
Is
how
how
you
you drink
want,
it. Yeah,
but
exactly.
you also get the opportunity to it changes the experience. You know,
To
um,
me, the mint finish comes off. The sweet tobacco really pops, and the
mhm,
mint finish comes off when you have it on the rocks.
yeah,
Like I like my whiskey. It depends on which one. Like if it's an EH Taylor, I'll drink it neat. If it's Weller Special Reserve, I like it
mhm,
neat. A lot of ryes, I do like the rocks because rye is a little spicier grain by nature,
mhm,
and the rocks really gives it that nice mellow that I like.
yeah. If I'm drinking in the warmer months, like we're
Hmm.
entering, I'll sit on the deck, have some music going, and I'll have a glass and just a little bit of ice just to
Yep.
cool it off.
Yep.
Not enough to, really dilute anything, but just be a more welcoming temperature and,
Hmm.
you know, on an 85-degree July
Yeah. Oh
evening.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's some brands like I say, I sampled one last year on a hot day, and I was with the distiller and we were tasting it, and it was good whiskey. So like,
Mhm.
no disrespect to the whiskey, it was very very good. But it was foolproof rye,
Mhm.
and it was 100 degrees outside, and like I'm sweating.
Right.
Like there was no ice in it. It was neat, and I'm like, whew. And that's what rye will do to you. But rye can be much more mellow. It can have a lot of different flavor profiles, and a little bit of ice will go a long way with a rye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't necessarily like it when I see people with just a glass full of ice and whiskey
Right.
poured in it. And it's like
Right.
you're that's just too much.
You want some whiskey in your eyes type of
Yeah,
deal? Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, a little bit of ice goes a long way. If you have a nice big cube, that's a good thing too.
There we go.
Um, so back to music just a bit. What are you listening to now? So if we're you know if we're meeting up to go somewhere, you come by, pick me up, I hop in your car. What's playing on your stereo?
Mhm. Polyphia is one. Um, as a matter of fact, here's my phone. Hold on, I'll tell you. Let's go to my. Well, I don't need to brand anything here for anybody. Let's see here. I got Quincy Jones,
Oh wow.
"Walking in Space." That's one I've been really, really hanging out with a lot because I think a lot of people know Quincy Jones and his name, but I don't think a lot of people ever paid attention to the music he composed, especially the stuff he did for Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Really, really incredible stuff. You'll always get me with some Frank Sinatra in the car.
Nice.
Specifically his middle stuff, like Set 'em up Jack, Set 'em up Joe. I don't think that's the name of the song, but that's a wonderful
Mhm.
story that he sings. It's
Uh,
incredible. Let's
And
see
a big
here.
whiskey guy in his own right. Yeah.
And a big whiskey guy. Yep. I really enjoy a band called The Midnight. It's an 80s throwback band.
Hmm.
I don't know if they'd appreciate me calling it that, but they do harness a lot of the 80s sounds. And there's a great live album called Red, White, and Bruised.
Hmm.
And it's a phenomenal live album. The guitar player just kills it. They have a saxophone, some synthesizers. And so you'd get me with Polyphia, The Midnight, maybe some Eric
Yep.
Clapton, some Pearl Jam,
Hmm.
that type
Yeah.
of stuff.
Okay. No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, you're saying saxophone and synthesizers. Yeah, that's 80s. Okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's it's
80s.
80s,
You're you're
but
you're not getting a saxophone on a rock album, past 1988 or something.
well, there's so many great. The wonderful thing about today's day and age is, you know, um, just like whiskey, there's so many different products that can be released that people can enjoy.
Right.
Um, I'm a big fan of that, because when we were young, you only had what was on basic network TV. You only had the albums that the companies gave you. You didn't have access to anything different
Right.
than what everyone else in the world was allowed to listen to.
Right.
And when you've got these wonderful groups who are bringing back these different styles of music and doing it almost better than what they did in the 80s. I'm telling you, you listen to some of these like Gloria from the Midnight, that is a wonderful tune and it just kills. It's almost a religious tune. It's almost like they've harnessed some old religious music from like the bluegrass hills of Kentucky.
Wow.
And anybody who listens to that, they're going to think I'm crazy for saying that, but I'm telling you, I could stand up and defend it. Um, we won't do it here, but there's some really great music out there that I love the fact that there's more choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the thing is, you know, technology is not perfect by any means.
Right.
We're probably about 5 years away from the machines taking over and killing us all. Uh,
Yeah. Let's hope
but
not.
and Spotify, is as unfair as it is to musicians, in the way they're compensated, in the way their music is accessible. You couldn't ask for anything more.
Spotify. I do the iTunes, Apple
Yep.
iTunes. And I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, so much you missed out on so much music when you were young because you couldn't afford to go buy the $13 CD. When we were kids, the album or the CD, that was what you mowed grass for.
Right.
That was a hard thing to get. That wasn't, $13 is throwaway money now. $13 in 1990 was, you were shoveling out some hard-earned bucks to get that album because it offered that much value to you.
Right.
And now there's great artists who don't even receive, an ounce of what they should because it's free. I like the fact that there's a low barrier to entry to get to this music, but it's not good for the artist.
No, it's not. And there's a middle ground there someplace.
Yeah, one day.
And hopefully some way we get there.
Yeah.
But we're not there right now. And if you're wanting to support local musicians in Louisville or your hometown, wherever it is, one, buy a ticket, buy some merch.
Absolutely.
That's the way they survive.
The ticket and the merch is all of their money. They don't get anything off the record.
No. Unless they've got at their table, hey, here's a vinyl of our album, here's a CD, buy it.
Yep.
But I can listen to it for my $15.99 a month Spotify. Buy it. Okay.
Right.
It's you paid $10 for the ticket. You didn't have to pay Ticketmaster their arm and a leg, vital organs or anything like that. Spend a little more cash. Get some merch, get some physical music in your hand.
Yeah.
And it means it makes a world of difference to these guys. It really does.
Oh, that's what keeps them together. There's a great small group of so I used to fill in for this band called Tattoo Babylon. It was a Rolling Stones cover band. Used to be Bill Davis is a good friend of mine. He went on to form the Billy Davis group that played a lot at like Stevie Ray's and stuff like that. And there's some nice and really heartfelt organizations who help local musicians when they need help.
Murph
as well. Oh yeah, Murph. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And so the Murph group, the Murph guys are really, really important to local musicians. So if you wanted to support something, support Murph.
Yeah. Yeah. Ken, this has been a blast, man.
Absolutely. Same.
I had a great time. We'll definitely get together again next time you've got some news hopping. And I tell all of our guests, this is like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Okay, there we go.
Because whatever you're doing, this show's here to support you and your brand and help you get your message out and get people to try this whiskey because it's fantastic. It really is.
Well, I'm honored, and just so you know, you're the first podcast that I've done.
Well,
I didn't want to do a single one before I did yours. Because Alan spoke so highly of you, and the fact that we talked months ago and you didn't let out the rabbit out of the bag, right? Like you kept it under your hat until it was appropriate, and I appreciate that, and it means a lot to me. So, thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm excited about what you're doing. I appreciated the chance to talk with you a few months ago about all of this.
Yeah,
and I think you're on a great path, and just excited to watch it all unfold for you.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. Before we get out of here, though, tell everybody where they can find AJ Schreiner.
Okay, so you can friend me on Facebook, Ken Schreiner. Should be easy to find me. I'm holding a clear bottle of the gin. If you want to find me on YouTube or AJ Schreiner Spirits, AJ_Schreiner_Spirits on Instagram. Let's see here. At the website, AJSchreinerSpirits.com. Going to join the email page. With these bottles, we're releasing 1,000 a quarter, and they will sell out. Mm-hmm. The first bottles will be reserved for a group of veterans. So awesome. The veterans will have. So I'm a big fan of first responders, veterans, teachers, nurses. Those are my people, and I love them, and I want to do my best to support them. So each batch, veterans will get an opportunity to purchase them first. before they go on the market to the rest of the group. And we're working on how to exactly put that together as far as technology, but that's the goal. And we will email everyone early if they're a veteran and say, hey, here's the link, go ahead and purchase. So please, if you're a veteran and you want to be a part of this, just know we support you and we support your family, and we thank you for what you did, and you'll have first dibs.
Yeah. Have you posted that on your social media?
Not yet. That was when I was at the Historic Trades Workshop up in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing that thing for the veterans, and one of the veterans asked me, he says, can you guarantee that I'll get a bottle? And I said, no. And he said, well, what can you do to help make sure that everybody in this veterans workshop gets a bottle? And we figured it out. So that veterans workshop is the first group of veterans that we have on the list. But if other veterans want to join, please go to ajschreinerspirits.com, go to the join page. If there's a ability to put in a note, I believe you have one, put in I'm a veteran, and we'll try to put you in a separate category to get emailed out first dibs for the veterans.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I really appreciate you doing that. That is very cool. And
hey, I love America, and we love the people who support it.
There you are. There you are. Look at that. Got that gin in your hand. But yeah, be sure to check out AJ_Schreiner_Spirits on Instagram and AJSchreinerSpirits.com.
Yes,
The story, we've talked a lot about the generations behind Ken. That story is spelled out on the website, and it's very interesting. Gets into a little bit more about the notebooks, so be sure to check that out.
Yep. And thank you again.
Yeah. As for our show, you can watch us on YouTube, and if you watch us on YouTube, then you'll get to see this this picture of Ken. So yeah.
I'm gonna
so you just got to go and check that out, or you can just listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. We have a Facebook page where we release all of our shows, including this one. We have a Facebook group where you can post what you're drinking, what you're listening to while you're drinking it, and I'm sure in the very near future you will see me posting about drinking Kentuckiana gin or Heritage Rye. And who knows, maybe listening to some Pearl Jam,
there we go,
or some Eric Clapton or some Derek Trucks. So, all right, Ken, thank you very much on behalf of Ken and myself. Until next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers.
Night.